There are moments when your mind just won't slow down. Thoughts keep racing, questions keep piling up, and no matter how hard you try, peace feels out of reach. You lie awake at night replaying conversations, worrying about tomorrow, and carrying burdens that were never meant for you to carry alone. And while your mind is loud, your heart quietly aches. It's tired, it's heavy, it's wounded. But here's the truth you need to hold on to. God never designed you to live trapped in your own thoughts or weighed down by a broken heart. When your mind becomes a battlefield and your emotions feel like a storm, God steps in as your healer, your restorer, and your peace. Overthinking often comes from trying to control what only God can handle. You keep analyzing, planning, and worrying because deep down, you're afraid of what might happen. But God is not asking you to figure everything out. He's asking you to trust Him. Faith begins where overthinking ends. When you release your need to understand everything, you make room for God to move in ways you never could. And that sadness in your heart, it didn't come to destroy you. It may have come from disappointment, loss, rejection, or unanswered prayers. But God sees every hidden tear. He understands the pain you don't even have words for. He is not distant from your sorrow. He is present in it. He is close to the brokenhearted, and He specializes in restoring what feels beyond repair. Healing doesn't always happen overnight. Sometimes God heals your heart little by little, teaching you to lean on Him day by day. He replaces anxious thoughts with His promises. He replaces fear with faith. He replaces heaviness with hope. But it starts when you bring everything to Him. Your thoughts, your pain, your confusion, and say, God, I can't carry this anymore. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to fix everything. You just need to fix everything. You just need to surrender. Because when you place your restless mind and your hurting heart into God's hands, you are placing them in the only place where true healing can begin. So today, choose to let go. Choose to trust. Choose to believe that God is already working behind the scenes. Your thoughts don't control your future. God does. And your pain is not the end of your story. Healing is. Overthinking often feels like responsibility, like you are doing something productive by trying to figure everything out. You replay situations in your mind, analyze every possible outcome, and attempt to prepare yourself for what might go wrong. It gives the illusion of control, as if thinking more will somehow protect you from pain, disappointment, or failure. But the truth is, overthinking is not control, it is a burden. It places pressure on your mind that it was never designed to carry. At the root of overthinking is the desire to control what only God can handle. You want clarity before you move, certainty before you trust, and guarantees before you step forward. You want to know how things will work out, when they will happen, and why certain things are unfolding the way they are. But life does not operate on your ability to predict it. It operates on your willingness to trust God in the middle of uncertainty. When you overthink, you are trying to solve problems that have not even happened yet. You are creating scenarios, building fears, and exhausting your energy on things that may never come to pass. Your mind becomes a place of endless what-ifs, and each what-if pulls you further away from peace. Instead of living in the present, you are trapped in a future that does not exist, and the more you try to control it, the more anxious and overwhelmed you become. God never asked you to carry that kind of weight. He never assigned you the role of controlling outcomes, managing every detail, or predicting the future. That role belongs to Him alone. When you step into that space, you are stepping outside of your design. And whenever you operate outside of God's design, you will experience stress, confusion, and fatigue. There is a difference between being responsible and trying to be in control. Responsibility means you do what God has called you to do. You make wise decisions, you take steps forward, and you remain faithful in what is in front of you. Control, on the other hand, is when you try to manipulate outcomes, force answers, and hold on tightly to things that are not yours to manage. Overthinking is often the result of crossing that line. You may not even realize you are doing it. It can look like constantly questioning yourself, doubting your decisions, or needing reassurance over and over again. It can show up as fear of making the wrong choice, fear of missing out, or fear of what others might think. But underneath all of that is a deeper issue. It is a struggle to trust that God is truly in control. Trusting God does not mean you will have all the answers. It means you are willing to move forward even when you do not. It means you release your need to understand everything and accept that God's wisdom is greater than yours. When you trust Him, you are saying, even if I don't see the full picture, I believe you do. That kind of trust quiets the mind in a way that overthinking never can. Overthinking keeps you stuck because it convinces you that you need more information before you act. It tells you to wait until everything makes sense. But if you wait for perfect clarity, you may never move at all. Faith requires movement in uncertainty. It requires you to take a step without knowing exactly how the path will unfold. God is not limited by your lack of understanding. In fact, He often works in ways that go beyond what you can comprehend. When you try to figure everything out, you limit your perspective to what you can see. But when you trust God, you open the door for Him to do things you could never have imagined. Letting go of overthinking is not about ignoring your thoughts. It is about redirecting them. When your mind starts to race, you bring it back to truth. You remind yourself that God is in control, that He is faithful, and that He is already working on your behalf. You replace your what ifs with even ifs. Even if things don't go the way you expect, God is still good. Even if the path is unclear, God is still leading you. Your mind was never meant to be your master. It was meant to be guided by your faith. When you allow overthinking to take over, it begins to lead you into fear, doubt, and confusion. But when you surrender your thoughts to God, He leads you into peace, clarity, and rest. Worry has a way of disguising itself as concern, making you feel like you are being careful, responsible, or prepared. It whispers that if you just think about it a little longer, if you just go over it one more time, you might finally find peace. But instead of bringing peace, worry keeps your mind restless. It circles the same problems without offering real solutions, draining your energy and clouding your clarity. God's invitation is not to carry worry more skillfully. It is to replace it completely with trust and faith. That invitation challenges everything your natural instincts want to do. Because worry feels active, while trust can feel passive. Worry feels like you are doing something, while faith often feels like you are letting go. But in reality, faith is not passive at all. It is a deliberate decision to shift your focus from your limitations to God's power. When you choose to trust, you are not denying that problems exist. You are simply deciding that those problems are not greater than the one who holds your life in His hands. Worry magnifies the problem, faith magnifies God, and whatever you magnify will shape your perspective. If your focus stays on the problem, it will seem overwhelming, but when your focus shifts to God, you begin to see that nothing is beyond His ability. Worry often grows in places where trust has not yet taken root. It thrives in uncertainty, feeding on unanswered questions and unclear outcomes. You want to know how things will turn out. You want a reassurance that everything will be okay. But God does not always provide answers in advance. He provides Himself, and His presence is meant to be enough even when details are missing. Faith is choosing to believe that God is working even when you cannot see it. It is holding on to His character when circumstances feel unstable. It is remembering that He is faithful, wise, and in control, regardless of how things appear. This kind of faith does not come from having everything figured out. It comes from knowing who God is. Replacing worry with trust is not a one-time decision. It is a daily, sometimes moment-by-moment choice. Your mind may naturally drift back to anxious thoughts, especially when you are facing pressure or uncertainty. But every time it does, you have the opportunity to redirect it. You can pause and remind yourself that you do not have to cast it. Read this alone. You can choose to place that concern back into God's hands. This process requires intentional thinking. You cannot control every thought that enters your mind, but you can choose which thoughts you allow to stay. When worry tries to settle in, you confront it with truth. You remind yourself that God has been faithful before and he will be faithful again. You remember the times he made a way, provided, or brought you through situations you once thought were impossible. Trust grows stronger when it is exercised. The more you choose faith over worry, the more natural it becomes. At first, it may feel uncomfortable to let go of control. You may feel like you are ignoring something important. But over time, you begin to realize that releasing worry does not mean neglecting responsibility. It means recognizing your limits and relying on God's strength. Worry drains your emotional and spiritual energy, leaving you exhausted without moving forward. Trust, on the other hand, restores your strength. It allows you to rest even in the middle of uncertainty. It gives you a sense of stability that is not based on circumstances, but on God's unchanging nature. There is also a freedom that comes with trust. When you stop trying to control everything, you free yourself from the constant pressure of needing to have all the answers. You begin to live more fully in the present instead of being consumed by fear of the future. You can take steps forward with confidence, not because you know exactly what will happen, but because you trust the one who is guiding you. Faith does not eliminate challenges, but it changes how you face them. Instead of approaching life with fear and hesitation, you move with confidence and peace. You understand that even if things do not go according to your plans, God's plan is still at work, and his plan is always greater than anything you see. Create on your own. When you truly begin to replace worry with trust to change, your thoughts become calmer, your heart becomes lighter, and even in situations that once would have overwhelmed you, there is a quiet assurance that you are not alone and you are not without help. Sadness has a way of making you feel invisible. It tells you that no one really sees what you are going through, that your pain is too deep to explain, and that even if you tried, others wouldn't fully understand. So you carry it quietly. You smile when you have to. You function when you must. But deep inside, there is a heaviness that doesn't easily lift. And over time, that weight can make you feel isolated, like you are walking through something all by yourself. But the truth is, your sadness is not hidden from God. He sees every part of it, the moments you cry in silence, the thoughts you keep to yourself, and the emotional weight you struggle to put into words. Nothing about your pain is overlooked or ignored. Where others may only see the surface, God sees the depth. He understands not just what you are feeling, but why you are feeling it. Your sadness may come from many places. It could be the result of disappointment when things didn't turn out the way you hoped. It could come from rejection, when someone you trusted or valued did not respond in the way you needed. It could be rooted in loss, losing a person, an opportunity, or even a version of life you once believed you would have. Sometimes it is not even one clear reason, but a buildup of many small hurts over time. Whatever the source, the pain is real and it matters. One of the greatest struggles with sadness is the feeling that you have to fix it on your own. You may try to distract yourself, push the feelings aside, or convince yourself to just move on. But emotions do not disappear simply because they are ignored. They need to be acknowledged, processed, and brought into the light. And this is where God meets you, not in the version of you that pretends everything is okay, but in the version of you that is honest about the pain. God does not require you to have perfect words or a composed heart when you come to him. You can come as you are, confused, broken, weary, or overwhelmed. He is not intimidated by your emotions. In fact, he invites you to bring them to him. When you open your heart honestly, you create space for his comfort to enter. There is a difference between being alone and feeling alone. You may feel like no one understands, but that does not mean you are without presence. God is near even when your emotions try to convince you otherwise. He is close in the quiet moments, in the heavy silence, and in the spaces where your heart feels most fragile. His presence is not always loud or obvious, but it is constant. Understanding that God sees your sadness changes how you carry it. Instead of feeling like you have to hide it, you begin to release it. Instead of holding everything inside, you start to let it out in His presence. That release is part of the healing process. It does not remove the pain instantly, but it lightens the burden because you are no longer carrying it alone. There is also comfort in knowing that your pain has purpose, even if you cannot see it right now. God does not waste what you go through. The sadness you feel today can become a source of strength, compassion, and deeper faith tomorrow. It can shape your character, deepen your understanding, and allow you to connect with others who are going through similar struggles. While God may not have caused your pain, He can use it for something meaningful. Your sadness does not define you, and it is not permanent. It is a season, not your identity. Even though it may feel overwhelming right now, it will not last forever. God is working within you, slowly bringing healing, restoring your heart, and renewing your strength. This process takes time, but it is steady and intentional. When you begin to truly believe that God sees and understands your pain, it shifts something within you. You no longer feel the need to pretend or suppress your emotions. You find the courage to be honest, to open up, and to trust that you are cared for at a deeper level than you realized. And in that place of honesty and trust, healing begins to take root. Healing rarely happens all at once, and that can be frustrating when your heart is tired and your mind feels overwhelmed. You want relief now. You want clarity now. You want the heaviness to lift immediately so you can feel like yourself again. But often God chooses to heal in a process rather than in a single moment. Not because He is unable to do it instantly, but because there is something deeper He wants to build within you along the way. When healing becomes a process, it requires patience. And patience is not easy when you are hurting. It can feel like nothing is changing, like you are stuck in the same emotional place day after day. But just because progress is not obvious does not mean it is not happening. God often works beneath the surface in ways you cannot immediately see. He is restoring parts of you that were broken, strengthening areas where you were weak, and reshaping your perspective little by little. Step-by-step healing allows you to grow in ways that instant healing cannot. If everything changed overnight, you might miss the lessons that come through the journey. You might not develop the resilience, the faith, or the depth that comes from walking with God through difficult moments. The process teaches you how to rely on Him, not just in one mom, intend to me, but in every moment of your life. There are days when you will feel stronger, more hopeful, and more at peace. And then there are days when the sadness seems to return, when your thoughts feel heavy again, and it feels like you have taken a step backward. But healing is not a straight line. It moves forward, then pauses, then continues again. Those difficult days are not a sign that you are failing. They are part of the process. God does not rush your healing, but He is faithful in it. Every small step matters. Every moment you choose to trust instead of fear. Every time you bring your thoughts back to Him instead of letting them spiral. Every time you allow yourself to feel without shutting down. These are all signs of progress. Even when it feels small, it is significant. In this process, God often replaces what is unhealthy with what is life-giving. He begins to shift your thinking, helping you recognize patterns that once kept you stuck. He gently corrects lies you may have believed about yourself, your situation, or your future. Over time, those anxious thoughts lose their power and His truth begins to take their place. This transformation does not happen by force. It happens through consistent surrender. Each day, you are given the opportunity to bring your heart and mind back to God. You may have to do it again and again, especially when emotions are strong. But with each act of surrender, you are allowing Him to work deeper within you. The process also teaches you to depend on God in a more personal way. When everything is going well, it is easy to rely on your own strength. But when you are in the middle of healing, you become more aware of your need for Him. You begin to seek Him more intentionally, not just for answers, but for comfort, peace, and strength. That dependence builds a relationship that is deeper and more authentic. There is a quiet strength that develops through gradual healing. You begin to notice that things that once overwhelmed you no longer have the same effect. Situations that would have triggered anxiety or sadness start to feel more manageable. Your reactions change, your perspective shifts, and your inner world becomes more stable. These changes may be subtle, but they are powerful. Sometimes you may wish you could skip the process and just arrive at the end. But the process is where transformation happens. It is where your faith is refined, your character is strengthened, and your heart is renewed. God is not just interested in removing your pain. He is interested in shaping who you become through it. Even when you cannot feel it, God is working consistently. He does not take breaks from your healing. He does not forget about your pain. Every moment you are walking through is known to him, and he is actively involved in bringing restoration. You may not see the full picture yet, but you can trust that he is leading you toward wholeness one step at a time. Surrender is often misunderstood because it sounds like giving up, like losing control, or like admitting defeat. Everything within you may resist it at first. You have been taught to hold on, to stay strong, to figure things out, and to keep pushing forward no matter how heavy things feel. So when you hear that true peace comes from surrender, it can feel confusing. How can letting go actually make things better? The reality is that surrender is not about weakness. It is about alignment. It is recognizing that there are things in your life you were never meant to control in the first place. When you try to hold everything together on your own, you carry a weight that slowly drains your energy, clouds your thinking, and exhausts your heart. But when you surrender, you are not dropping your responsibilities. You are plunging them into the hands of the one who is fully capable of handling them. Peace does not come from having everything under control. It comes from knowing that God is in control. There is a difference. When you rely on your own control, your peace becomes fragile because it depends on circumstances going your way. The moment something unexpected happens, your sense of stability is shaken. But when your peace is rooted in God, it remains steady even when life feels uncertain. Surrender begins in the mind. It starts when you decide that you will no longer let your thoughts run freely without direction. Instead of allowing worry, fear, and doubt to dominate, you intentionally place your thoughts before God. You acknowledge what you are feeling, but you do not let those feelings define your reality. You bring them into the light and say, this is what I'm struggling with, but I trust you more than I trust my own understanding. This kind of surrender requires honesty. You cannot truly let go of something you refuse to admit you are holding. Sometimes you have to be real with yourself about what is weighing you down. It could be fear about the future, regret about the past, or anxiety about something you cannot control. Once you identify it, you can begin the process of releasing it. Letting go is not always a one-time act. It is something you may have to do repeatedly. You may surrender a situation to God in the morning, only to find yourself picking it back up by the afternoon. That does not mean you have failed. It means you are learning. Each time you choose to release it again, you are strengthening your ability to trust. Surrender also involves your emotions. It is not just about what you think, but what you feel. You may feel afraid, uncertain, or overwhelmed, and those feelings can be strong, but surrender means you do not let those emotions control your actions. You acknowledge them, but you place them under God's authority. You choose faith even when your feelings are pulling you in the opposite direction. There is a quiet freedom that comes with surrender. When you stop trying to force outcomes, you release yourself from the pressure of making everything happen on your own. You no longer feel like every decision carries the weight of your entire future. Instead, you move forward with a sense of peace, trusting that God is guiding your steps even when you cannot see the full path. Surrender shifts your perspective. Instead of asking, how can I fix this? You begin to ask, how can I trust God in this? That shift changes everything. It takes the focus off your limitations and places it on God's ability. It reminds you that you are not alone in what you are facing and that you do not have to have all the answers. Peace is not the absence of problems. It is the presence of trust. It is the presence of trust. When you surrender your thoughts and emotions to God, you create space for that peace to grow. It may not come all at once, but it begins to settle in your heart little by little. You start to notice that your mind is quieter, your reactions are calmer, and your outlook is more hopeful. Over time, surrender becomes less difficult and more natural. You begin to realize that holding on tightly never gave you the control you thought it did, and letting go does not leave you empty. It leaves you supported. You learn that God can be trusted not just with the big things, but with every detail of your life. And in that place of surrender, you discover a peace that does not depend on circumstances, a peace that remains steady even when life feels uncertain, and a peace that carries you through moments when your own strength is not enough. Renewing your mind is not something that happens automatically. It requires intentional effort and consistent discipline. Your thoughts have patterns, and many of those patterns were formed over time through experiences, fears, disappointments, and habits. If your mind has been used to overthinking, negativity, or anxiety, it will naturally return to those patterns unless something actively interrupts and replaces them. That is why renewal is necessary. It is the process of retraining your mind to think differently. Every day, your mind is being shaped by what you focus on. What you repeatedly think about begins to influence how you feel, how you respond, and ultimately how you live. If your thoughts are constantly filled with worry, doubt, or fear, your life will. Start to reflect those things, but if your thoughts are grounded in truth, hope, and faith, your perspective begins to change, even if your circumstances remain the same. The challenge is that your mind does not automatically choose what is healthy. It often defaults to what is familiar. Even if those familiar thoughts are harmful, they can still feel normal because you are used to them. That is why renewing your mind requires you to become aware of what you are thinking. You cannot change what you do not recognize. Once you begin to notice your thought patterns, you can start to challenge them instead of simply accepting them. Not every thought that enters your mind is true or helpful. Some thoughts are rooted in fear, some are based on past pain, and others are simply assumptions that have no real foundation. But if you do not question them, they can begin to control your emotions and decisions. Renewal happens when you pause and evaluate those thoughts instead of letting them run freely. This means learning to replace harmful thoughts with truth. When your mind tells you that everything will go wrong, you choose to remind yourself that not everything is within your control, and that does not mean everything will fall apart. When your thoughts tell you that you are not enough, you begin to reject that belief and replace it with a healthier understanding of your worth. This process takes time, but with repetition, those new thoughts begin to feel more natural. Consistency is key in renewing your mind. One positive thought will not undo years of negative thinking, but repeated truth can gradually reshape your mindset. It is like building a new pathway in your mind. At first, it may feel unfamiliar and even uncomfortable, but the more you choose it, the stronger it becomes. Over time, what once required effort begins to happen more naturally. Renewing your mind so requires guarding what you allow into it. The things you listen to, watch, and engage with all have an influence on your thoughts. If you constantly surround yourself with negativity, it will reinforce unhealthy patterns. But when you intentionally choose what you expose your mind to, you create an environment that supports growth and healing. There will be moments when old thoughts try to return, especially during stress or emotional difficulty. That does not mean you have lost progress. It simply means your mind is returning to what it knows. In those moments, you have a choice to follow those thoughts or to redirect them. Each time you choose to redirect, you are strengthening your ability to maintain a renewed mindset. Patience is important in this process. You may not see immediate results, and there may be days when it feels like nothing is changing. But transformation is happening beneath the surface. Your mind is slowly adjusting, learning, and adapting to a new way of thinking. Even small shifts matter because they build momentum over time. As your mind begins to renew, you will notice changes in how you respond to situations. Things that once triggered anxiety may start to feel more manageable. Your reactions may become calmer, and your outlook may become more balanced. This does not mean life become more balanced. This does not mean you are no longer controlled by every thought that comes your way. A renewed mind leads to a more stable and peaceful inner life. Instead of being pulled in different directions by every passing thought, you gain a sense of control and clarity. You begin to think with intention rather than reaction, and as that happens, you create space for peace to grow, not because everything around you has changed, but because something within you has. Waiting is one of the most challenging parts of any journey, especially when your heart is heavy and your mind feels restless. You want change, you want relief, and you want to feel whole again. But instead of immediate answers, you want to find yourself in a space where nothing seems to be moving as quickly as you hoped. That space can feel uncomfortable, even discouraging, because it seems like you are stuck between where you are and where you want to be. But waiting is not wasted time. It is a place where something deeper is being formed within you. While you may be focused on external change, God is often working on internal transformation. He is preparing your heart, strengthening your character, and shaping your perspective so that when the change does come, you are ready for it in ways you may not have been before. In moments of waiting, it is easy to become frustrated. You may question why things are taking so long or wonder if anything is happening at all. The silence can make you feel overlooked, as if your prayers are not being heard. But just because you do not see immediate results does not mean that nothing is happening. There is a difference between visible progress and real progress.
be all right. You don't have to stay. If you've already chosen, I won't stand in your way. I can feel it in your distance, in the way you barely speak, like your heart is somewhere else now, somewhere I can't reach. I was trying just to hold us while you slowly slipped away. Now I'm left with all the silence you didn't want to say. Maybe I just held on to something already gone. I'll be fine, you can leave. You don't owe me anything. If your heart has found a way out of what we used to be, I'll be fine, don't look back. I'll survive this empty space. Not tonight, maybe not soon, but I'll learn to be okay. We don't need to fake the feeling, I can see it in your eyes. There's no reason left for staying when the love already died. Through the quiet in your voice, I can hear your choice. I'll be fine, you can leave. You don't owe me anything. If your heart has found a way out of what we used to be, I'll be fine, don't look back. I'll survive this empty space. Not tonight, maybe not soon, but I'll learn to be okay. I don't need a reason why, I can see it in goodbye. And it breaks me, yeah, it does, but I won't ask you to stay. I'll be fine, you can leave. You don't owe me anything. If your heart has found a way out of what we used to be, I'll be fine, don't look back. I'll survive this empty space. Not tonight, maybe not soon, but I'll learn to be okay. I'll be all right.